Hello, I'm Joe Schubeck, and I'd like to share some memories with you. My first memory is how easy I got in and out of this car back in 1965. Drag racing became my dream the day I started reading Hot Rod Magazine stories about this hot, new West Coast trend. That's what got my goosebumps standing at attention. In Cleveland, with snow-covered streets back in the early 50s, I read and reread the stories by Hot Rod editor Wally Parks, telling about the upcoming new superstars racing side by side with their early production cars, modified to get the most power into the lightest chassis. But it wasn't the coupes and roadsters that got my attention. It was the all-out rail jobs, as they were called back then. The build-up picture stories gave a step-by-step account on how they did it. That's what I'm talking about. I read every Peterson magazine I could get my hands on, and my big wish at that time was to drive a dragster in competition against those I read so much about in California. Well, as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for. My first race car was a flathead Ford-powered dragster built by a Cleveland man named Jack Harris. In that seat, I competed in my first drag race put on by the Akron Cam Jammers in 1956. But the flathead Ford engine soon had me out looking for more power. A local McCullough supercharger distributor donated a blown Chevy engine for the 1957 season. But sad to say, the only record I set that year was an altitude record for the highest blower belt. In 1958, I met Joe Scarpelli, and we partnered to build a new dragster powered by a supercharged Chrysler, just like the ones I read so much about on the West Coast. We were a good team and were almost undefeated that year, until stiffer competition showed up by the name of Gordon Collett and Connie Coletta. Between the three of us, we dominated competition in the Midwest. At that point in time, we ran on gasoline to comply with NHRA rules, and the flagman was the method to start the race. A couple of years later, I met a top fuel contender by the name of Art Malone. He asked me to make a run in his car so he could watch how it left the starting line. I did, and that was the bug that bit me. When I got back home from that event, I changed over to nitro, and from that time on, I only bought gasoline for the tow car, just as Art said I would. In 1965, I thought I was on my way to becoming a major player on the top fuel circuit. But as luck would have it, I discovered some new technology for forming metal that led me to a high-tech breakthrough for producing a one-piece bell housing. The aluminum housings were not only beautiful but functional for both the dragsters that I was producing and our steel version for the total containment of flywheel explosions that were a regular occurrence at the drag strips. These grenade-like explosions were caused mostly by showroom muscle cars that were flooding the drag strip during that era. Well, our new high-tech scatter shield was a game changer, both for the sport and for me. The late Wally Parks, then president of NHRA, said that Lakewood's containment method helped save drag racing because spectator insurance claims had gone over the top. For me, the huge production requirements to supply the need made for an early exit from a drag racing career that I had so long desired. I enjoyed our huge success with Lakewood Industries right up to the time when we sold the company in 1970. Now, more than 50 years have gone by, and as I look back, there has been nothing that has lit my fire more than that time I spent in the seat of my top fuel dragster. I raced against hundreds of competitors in those 9 years, many of whom have become longtime friends. I will end this story by quoting one of the greatest drag strip operators I ever knew, my friend George Eisenhart. In his Hall of Fame acceptance speech posted on this website, George said, "As you go through life, the only thing you're going to have at the end are your memories." Today, I relive some of those great memories every time I sit in my restored 1965 Top Fuel dragster to fire up the engine at what we now call Cackle Fests. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned because there are new product videos on this website that may help someone you know who is planning to restore a vintage front engine dragster.